Marshall Manning, the son of Tennessee Volunteers legend Peyton Manning, is already becoming one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in American football, even though his high school career is only beginning. While most players entering the class of 2030 are still developing their fundamentals away from the national spotlight, Marshall is growing up with a level of attention that few young athletes have ever experienced. Every throw he makes, every camp he attends, and every football decision he takes is being watched by fans, recruiting analysts, and college football enthusiasts across the country. It is a unique situation that comes with incredible opportunities but also enormous expectations, and those expectations are only expected to increase over the next several years. The latest development that has fans talking is Marshall's recent workout experience involving Bo Nix, the current starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos and one of the most recognizable former quarterbacks in the SEC. Although Bo Nix spent the latter part of his college career at Oregon, many football fans still remember him as one of Auburn's most recognizable quarterbacks. That connection alone has sparked conversations throughout SEC football, especially because Marshall carries perhaps the most famous last name in Tennessee Volunteers history. For football fans, the story becomes fascinating because it represents more than a simple off-season workout. It highlights how modern recruiting has evolved. Elite young quarterbacks often learn from current NFL players regardless of college rivalries. Development has become the priority, and families increasingly seek opportunities that help players improve instead of limiting themselves because of conference loyalties. Marshall's attendance at the football camp demonstrates exactly that approach. Growing up as the son of Peyton Manning means football has always been part of Marshall's everyday life. Few young quarterbacks have access to the kind of knowledge available inside the Manning family. Peyton Manning is widely respected as one of the greatest quarterbacks in football history, not simply because of his statistics but because of his preparation, leadership, football intelligence, and relentless work ethic. Those qualities helped define his legendary career at Tennessee before he went on to achieve remarkable success in the NFL. Naturally, many fans assume Marshall's path will eventually lead him to Tennessee. After all, he has spent much of his childhood attending Volunteers games, experiencing the atmosphere at Neyland Stadium, and watching one of college football's most passionate fan bases. Those experiences have undoubtedly created lasting memories. However, today's recruiting landscape is very different from previous generations, and family legacy alone rarely determines where elite quarterbacks eventually commit. Marshall is expected to begin his freshman season at Baylor School in Chattanooga, one of Tennessee's respected football programs. His immediate opportunity to play significant varsity snaps remains uncertain because talented quarterback Keegan Croucher, a highly regarded four-star prospect committed to Ole Miss, is projected to lead the offense. That situation is not unusual. Many elite quarterbacks spend their freshman seasons learning behind experienced upperclassmen before eventually earning larger roles as they develop physically and mentally. In many ways, practicing behind a talented quarterback could actually benefit Marshall. Rather than facing pressure to become an instant starter, he can focus on improving his mechanics, understanding defensive coverage, strengthening his decision-making, and adapting to the speed of high school football. Development during these early years often proves far more important than immediate playing time. The football camp featuring Bo Nix offered another valuable learning opportunity. NFL quarterbacks possess a unique understanding of modern offensive football, and camps like these allow young players to observe professional habits firsthand. Everything from footwork and throwing mechanics to leadership and preparation becomes part of the educational experience. Those lessons can influence a young quarterback's development long before recruiters begin making scholarship offers. An interesting connection makes the story even more meaningful. Before enrolling at Baylor School, Marshall spent much of his childhood in Denver while Peyton Manning remained connected to the city following his legendary NFL career with the Denver Broncos. That background likely made participating in a camp hosted by Bo Nix, Denver's current starting quarterback, a natural opportunity rather than anything connected to future recruiting decisions. Still, football fans naturally enjoy speculating about recruiting. Because Bo Nix built his college reputation at Auburn, some supporters joked that Marshall might have heard positive things about the Tigers during the event. Others pointed out Oregon's recent quarterback success under coaches who helped maximize Bo Nix's talents after his transfer. While such conversations create entertaining off-season debates, there is currently no evidence that Marshall is leaning toward any particular college program. In reality, Marshall's recruitment is still years away from becoming truly active. College coaches understand that player development during middle school and early high school can change dramatically. Today's promising freshman may become tomorrow's elite national recruit, or simply continue developing at his own pace. That uncertainty explains why experienced recruiting analysts prefer patience before making bold predictions. Nevertheless, one thing appears almost certain. Whenever Marshall officially enters the recruiting process, nearly every major college football program will monitor his progress closely. Quarterbacks with his family background naturally attract attention, but recruiting interest will ultimately depend on his own performance, athletic growth, leadership qualities, and continued development throughout high school. For Tennessee, the situation creates understandable excitement. Volunteers fans remember the incredible impact Peyton Manning had on the program. His leadership elevated Tennessee into national championship conversations year after year, and although he never captured the Heisman Trophy or a national championship during his college career, his influence on the program remains enormous decades later. Many Tennessee supporters dream about another Manning leading the Volunteers' offense someday. It is an emotional idea because football traditions often connect multiple generations of families. Seeing Marshall eventually wear the orange jersey would undoubtedly become one of the biggest recruiting stories in college football history. Yet even the most passionate fans recognize that recruiting decisions should be based on the player's future rather than emotional expectations. That perspective is likely shared by Peyton Manning himself. Throughout his career, he consistently emphasized preparation, accountability, and making thoughtful football decisions. It would surprise few observers if Marshall is encouraged to evaluate every program carefully, compare coaching staffs, offensive systems, academic opportunities, player development records, and overall fit before making any commitment. Modern recruiting has become incredibly sophisticated. Quarterbacks now examine offensive philosophies, quarterback coaching experience, NFL development history, transfer portal stability, strength programs, sports science resources, NIL opportunities, and campus culture before narrowing their choices. Family tradition remains meaningful, but it represents only one factor among many important considerations. As Marshall continues developing physically, recruiters will also evaluate measurable traits such as arm strength, release speed, accuracy, mobility, pocket awareness, anticipation, decision-making, leadership, and consistency under pressure. Those qualities ultimately shape scholarship opportunities far more than a famous last name. The comparison many fans already make involves Arch Manning, another quarterback whose family legacy generated extraordinary national attention. Even before playing significant high school football, Arch Manning became one of the country's most discussed recruits. Every visit, workout, and recruiting rumor received national coverage. Marshall may experience an even greater level of attention simply because social media coverage continues expanding each year. Living under that spotlight presents unique challenges. Every performance may be analyzed more closely than those of other quarterbacks. Strong outings can create enormous excitement, while average games may generate unfair criticism. Learning to manage those expectations could become just as important as improving passing mechanics or reading defensive coverage. Fortunately, Marshall has access to experienced mentors who understand exactly what life under constant public attention feels like. Peyton Manning spent years handling enormous expectations throughout both college and professional football. That experience provides valuable guidance that very few young athletes receive. Another important factor is patience. Football development rarely follows a perfectly straight line. Young quarterbacks often experience rapid improvement during one season followed by slower progress the next. Physical maturity, coaching changes, offensive systems, and competition levels all influence long-term development. Marshall's journey will likely include both exciting milestones and valuable learning experiences along the way. The SEC itself remains one of the biggest attractions for elite quarterback recruits. Programs such as Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Florida, Auburn, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss continue investing heavily in quarterback development, facilities, coaching staffs, and recruiting infrastructure. Every one of those programs understands the importance of elite quarterback play in competing for conference championships and college football playoff opportunities. Should Marshall eventually emerge as one of the nation's top quarterback prospects, competition among these programs could become intense. Recruiting visits, coaching relationships, offensive evaluations, and player development plans would all become major storylines discussed by fans and analysts alike. For now, however, Marshall's primary responsibility remains much simpler. Continue learning. Continue developing. Continue enjoying football. At this stage, building fundamentals matters far more than rankings or recruiting predictions. His recent experience working around Bo Nix reflects that philosophy perfectly. Learning from successful quarterbacks regardless of school affiliation demonstrates maturity and a commitment to improvement. Football knowledge has no conference boundaries. Great players often seek advice from anyone capable of helping them become better. Fans will undoubtedly continue debating whether Marshall ultimately chooses Tennessee, another SEC program, or perhaps a powerhouse outside the conference. Those discussions are part of what makes college football recruiting so captivating. Every camp appearance, every highlight video, every interview, and every unofficial visit naturally creates fresh speculation. Still, it is important to remember that Marshall's story is only beginning. He has years of development ahead before signing any scholarship papers. Predicting his eventual college destination today would simply be speculation rather than fact. What can be said with confidence is that Marshall enters this journey carrying both remarkable opportunity and extraordinary expectations. His family legacy ensures national attention, while his own talent and work ethic will determine the opportunities available to him. The football world will watch closely as he progresses through high school, develops his game, and gradually enters one of the most anticipated recruiting journeys in recent memory. Whether that journey ultimately ends at Tennessee, another SEC powerhouse, or a completely different destination, Marshall's recruitment promises to become one of college football's biggest storylines over the coming years. Every camp appearance, every season at Baylor School, every improvement in his game, and every recruiting update will likely attract significant interest from fans across the country. For now, though, perhaps the biggest takeaway is refreshingly simple. Marshall remains a young quarterback focused on learning the game, improving every day, and embracing opportunities like working with Bo Nix to continue his development. The spotlight will only grow brighter from here, but if his early approach is any indication, he appears determined to let steady improvement, not outside expectations, shape the next chapter of his football journey. As recruiting eventually intensifies, fans across the SEC and beyond will eagerly follow each step, knowing they may be witnessing the beginning of another memorable chapter connected to one of football's most recognizable families. Regardless of where the future leads, Marshall's development will remain one of the most compelling long-term stories in college football, and every season will provide another opportunity to see how one of the game's most closely watched young quarterbacks continues building his own identity while honoring a legendary football legacy.